sir.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is such
Oh,
early hour in Seattle.
totally fine. It's totally fine. I love this. I love traveling. And I feel like I have been, uh, well, I think all of us feel like our hands have been tied the last couple of years, not being able to get out and see people, do things, meet people. Um, but I know that that's not necessarily what the crux of getting you to do this was. There was a different catalyst that got you into this. What happened to get you into this podcast of Not Lost?
So I had my own radio show for a while, for a number of years on public radio. In Seattle, we played called the Dinner Party Download. It was a culture magazine. And then that show kind of abruptly ended, as things do in radio sometimes. A big relationship ended in my life. And I was a little bit, it was in the middle of my life, and I was a little bit groping around trying to figure out what to do with myself. And I had this idea of, I always wanted to do this travel show. I had used to write a travel column, and where I would go to towns with friends and try to get invited to someone's house for dinner, which sounds crazy, but I did write a book on dinner parties and their healing powers. And so that was my idea. And then a company surprisingly said yes. And next thing you know, I'm thrust into this adventure. And this is season 1, where I'm going around the towns. And so I'm seeing places, but I am a little bit lost myself. And each town I see as an opportunity to learn both about the place and a little bit about what's going on with me.
Have you mapped out where you want to go, or do you kind of just think of a new spot once you've been there? Like maybe you hear of another spot and you're like, well, that sounds kind of fun. Like how do you even go about taking that first step into where you're going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely knew I wanted to get a little bit of different looks in America. There's such a complex, such an interesting country with lots of different flavors. So I wanted a little bit of everything if I could. And then also I needed a town where there was enough density where I could kind of maybe instigate a dinner party. There's, the Black Hills of South Dakota, one of my most beautiful places in the country. I think it'll be a hard time trying to sneak into someone's house for dinner there. So, a town that was big enough to welcome some strangers and friendly enough. But other than that, it was just places I dreamed about. So like Montreal, Portland, Maine, Bozeman, Montana, and others.
I have family in Bozeman. If you would have let me know, I could have gotten you a dinner party right there.
I should have told you. Yeah, what a wonderful spot that is.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. So my other question, because I've always thought it would be really fun to do a travel show, because the company that hired me would have to pay for everything. Is that another cool part about this, or is this all on you?
Well, most travel shows are television, because television has much bigger budgets and there's much bigger reward at the end. So it's rare for radio and audio for places to send people places, because the numbers are hard to make work. So there is a glamour to it. I'm not going to lie. It's wonderful to visit these places and be received. But, I was at an Airbnb with my 2 producers, my co-host, we were all piling into a car. We had very small per diem. So it wasn't, I wasn't living high on the hog, which I think actually is how most people don't travel high on the hog. We didn't use any tourist bureaus. Like, we went on our own steam, which makes it a little more authentic. We weren't beholden to anyone. So it's glamorous, but, living out of a suitcase for a couple of years takes a toll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am one of those people that I love to travel. I'm a performer. And so there are times where I get flown to places to perform for a weekend. And then you come home and it's like, that was really fun playing a rock star. Yay, my own bed. Like,
yeah,
there's that sense of, oh, thank God I'm finally home. Was it good to finally get back to base?
Well, spoiler alert. Well, while in the midst of the season, I was really happy to be running and gunning town to town. As we mentioned, I was single, but I'm not just romantically. I was just at a place where I was working for 12 years on the same show, 40 episodes a year. So I was willing to run around, but not to ruin the end of the season, but I did find a new affinity for home over the course of this journey, and what it means to actually just be in a place and the value that comes with that. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. So you're not alone on this tour. Is it like your best friend that you've taken with you, or?
It's different for most episodes. It's a good friend of mine named Danielle Henderson. She's a great writer. She has a memoir called The Ugly Cry, which was critically acclaimed last year. She also writes for television. I think she wrote for Divorce. She wrote for Maniac and other things. So she and I go places, and that has a certain dynamic. And then actually one episode we go with the Seattle native. I don't know if you're familiar with Luke Burbank. He is a character. He's on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, and he's on he's from the Northwest originally. He's a Seattle guy, comedian, and he and I go to Las Vegas right while he's going through a divorce and right when I am beginning a relationship. So we have very different intentions in that town. And so that was fun. And then I have a couple other friends that join me. So it's good to have a buddy comedy energy when there's no visuals. That way you can tell people, you can talk about where you're visiting without being too pedantic.
So the title, Not Lost. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I've been lost. I'm like, I'm not lost. Now, is that a reassurance that you've done for your title, or was that a very intentional title?
You said that perfectly, Amanda. I mean, the title, it alludes to many uses, but what you're saying is right. It's like the dad in the car and the partner is like, hey, will you ask for directions? Like, I'm not lost, but you're clearly lost, but your pride is not going to let you be lost. And in a way, that's a little bit, look, this show again is a little bit about our middle of our lives. We don't know what we're doing. You're in between jobs and you have to tell yourself you're not lost. You have to, what are you going to do? You have to get up in the morning and you have to do the thing, put your one foot in front of the other, but inside you probably are lost. And so the title is a little bit of that dual meaning. You hit the nail on the head of just like, I'm not lost, but maybe I am.
If you tell yourself that enough, maybe you won't be.
Hopefully. Yeah, it's a state of mind.
Exactly. So what is your goal? Do you hope to get to all 50 states in different places? Do you want to get to what is your goal in all of this?
I mean, the goal, what I think is, I am a big fan of the travel genre of the many great television shows and books, etc. But I think that this audio allows people to be immersed into a world in a more sumptuous way. Like they really just get to feel the cold in Montreal. People open up because you don't have a camera crew. There aren't 12 people. It's me and a microphone. And so I do think in each town, we're getting to a truth about each of these spots as they currently are. And I would just like to keep exploring and finding that out in other towns, not just America. We did Mexico City, we do Montreal. I would love to go to Europe or Asia. So the permutations are endless here.
I think that also the beauty and the charm of a podcast about travel is you can literally listen to the travel podcast whilst traveling. You can't do that with TV.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I remember this wasn't the engine for the whole idea, but I used to work and go on vacation. And you're like, oh, I'm going up to Boston or something. And then you quickly download a bunch of newspaper articles and print them. And you're like, maybe I'll read them on the plane. But it's like, why can't I listen to something while I'm in the airport or while I'm there that gives you some idea of things? And so, this also is, you don't need to use your hands or eyes to listen. So you can pack your suitcase, hail a cab, and still be listening and learning about where you're about to go.
I love that. I also love the fact that you did something with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
Can I tell you that I first of all, I'm in love with Nick, just straight up in love.
He's got a charisma about him for sure.
He's ridiculous. He's a mountain man and he's like a Renaissance man. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, genius.
Yes.
What was that dynamic? The three of you together. I mean,
well, I did a project called Look Up and Listen. And, the beauty of audio is you can have these giants, but they aren't necessarily together. So spoiler alert, we recorded them in separate settings. And then we made it on the audio. We made it as if they were all together. But as someone who's interviewed a lot of people in my life, two really genuinely wonderful humans who when you ask them questions are actually trying to find the answer. They don't have a pat answer already. They're not arriving here's my shtick. They're listening, which I promise is what makes one a good actor and one a good scientist is that they listen. They're open to not knowing where they are. Very fortunate to have worked with those guys. And who knows? Maybe I'll run across someone like that again in future episodes.
Oh man, what a incredible journey that you get to be on. And again, I know that it kind of started with two major, I don't want to say sad things, but major events that probably kind of were gut punches. And to turn it into something so beautiful and so fun where you get to learn about people and cultures and places. I mean, that shows what kind of a person you are, that you're an optimist.
Well, that's generous of you. I mean, it certainly, I think it just shows the generosity of people. Look, we're going to places. They know that we have some pedigree, so they're willing to open their door and talk with us. But everyone opens up very quickly. The interviews start where you learn a little bit about a museum, but then people open up about their failures in their lives or the things that make them excited or their anxieties about their children. And so it was buoying just to be around other humans who were game to open up. And so it was. I feel lucky to have had the opportunity, and I feel it reaffirmed my faith in humanity a little bit. You can just read the newspaper or Twitter all day and be sad, but if you actually start talking to people, it can lift your spirits.
I really truly believe that Facebook and Twitter should just be used as conduits for cat and kid videos. Like that, I think the world would be a much better place if it was just kittens and babies.
I mean, definitely dopamine inducing, both of those things.
Sure. So have you already done all of the episodes for this season?
I am working on the last episode now, and it is wild to have them coming out while I'm doing it, but it's coming together, and then I'm excited. What do you do after you do a travel show? Do you take a vacation? I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I might just take a nap in the back of my car or something. I'm not sure how it's gonna play out.
I think actually the opposite of a vacation is a staycation, where you just like burrow inside of your home and don't talk to anyone.
That might be the case, although COVID was a little bit of that. So we'll see. I haven't thought that far ahead just yet.
If you ever get to the Pacific Northwest, please know you have a place to stay. You can absolutely come to a dinner party. I'm an okay cook. And I have a lot of friends who are pretty cool. So I'd be more than happy to introduce you to them. So you always have a place up here.
This is fantastic, Amanda. Thank you. You should have told me that off air so I could pretend I met you when we do that episode. Wink, wink. But I will let you know if I do come to your town.
Well, the nice thing is that I'm blonde, and so half the time I'll forget what we talked about and be like, no, we are just meeting for the first time.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't believe it.
Tell people I retain water, not information. So it'll be like,
noted. It'll be new to both of us.
Exactly. Where has been your favorite place you've visited outside of the podcast, inside of whatever, just in your travels? Where has been your favorite place to visit?
I mean, it's different places. I've been fortunate enough to travel a bunch of different places, provide different things. I will say we recorded most of this before the pandemic. When we could finally travel again, I had a couple more locations, and I found myself in Big Sur, California, which is in the Central Coast near Monterey. It's like 90 miles of rugged coastline. It feels like, I mean, I imagine what Eden felt like. I mean, it is just really stunning, beautiful country. The air is so brisk and clean. There's sea otters and elephant seals. And so that was a great recharge after spending a couple years in COVID lockdown in a city.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah. So where are you based out of? Like where? So you're here and then you get to travel all over.
I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm originally from Philadelphia and lived in LA for a while, but I've been in Brooklyn for on and off for years. And part of the show, maybe not, is my coming to terms with the fact that this is my home, as opposed to just being a flop house where I drop my suitcase and kind of recover every couple weeks.
Well, I noticed you have plants that are still living, so that's good.
I can't take credit for those. I'm not alone here anymore. So yes, my plants are alive. I remember saying that one. Yeah, my mother saying you can't even commit to a house plant. But sure enough, there's a spoiler alert for the season. There's a little clue about what happens.
All right. So your producers come to you and say there are no budget constraints. There is no monetary issue with this request. Where do you fly off to right now?
Oh, I mean, I've never been to Hawaii. And I know people in Seattle have a special relationship to Hawaii, right? Because you guys are like, we made a deal with the devil. We live in a heavenly place, but it's going to be gray a bunch. So our deal is we will go to Hawaii and recharge in a big way. But I've never been as an East Coaster, so that sounds wonderful to me. And then, I think there are just so many places I would love to go. I'd love to go to, I've never been to like Morocco. I've been to Japan a little bit, but I haven't been to Vietnam. Like there's other places in Asia I'd love to visit. So
yeah.
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 So that was a broad answer. Anywhere that is new, but if in the States, I'd like to go to Hawaii.
Do you speak any different languages like fluently, or would it be basically like me when I travel? Like I know I'm a guest in your country, but I have no idea what you're saying.
I mean, this is very embarrassing. My mother is actually Croatian,
Is she
and
really?
I do go there. It's a beautiful, right behind the boot of Italy, these islands in the Adriatic, and I go there a lot. And I speak just samo malo, very little Croatian. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm a bit of a dingbat. But sometimes, as we know from being a radio host, being dumb is helpful for the audience because you're asking the questions other people are afraid to ask.
I literally just had this conversation with somebody. I had to fill in for our main guy, and he was interviewing the prosecuting attorney. Well, I don't know anything about law except don't break it. And I told him I'm probably going to ask you questions that are absolutely ridiculous because I don't know these things. And he said, if you are asking those questions, there are probably other people who have the same question. And I don't claim to be a smart person, clearly. And so if I'm able to dumb stuff down for people to enjoy, I'm down for that.
It's part of the job description. It's part of the job. If people have difficulty, I think with podcasting, a lot of people are eager to have a podcast, and they should. But hosting, playing a little bit, like kind of being responsible for the listener and what they don't know, is a real tough trick for a human's ego, because you have to pretend you don't know things sometimes, but you do know.
Yeah.
And that cuts against a lot of what we've been trained in school and other things. So
Exactly.
I think, Amanda, you're probably a member of Mensa, maybe on your way to a Nobel Prize, and this is just one of the great cons, and it's just what you got to do for work.
Thank you. It's a slow con. It's a real slow. In fact, it's so slow I may not make it to the end, but it was a fun journey.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, travel.
Oh, I absolutely just adore you. You have just a very pleasant way about you, and I am very much enjoying our time together. How can people listen to this travel podcast that it will inspire them to travel?
All right. Well, thank you. I'm enjoying our conversation as well. Not lost, we always say it. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. But for some people, especially listening to the radio, they're like, what the heck? So you could just go into Google and put in Not Lost Travel Podcast, and wherever that takes you. And if you listen to Apple Podcast or Spotify or iHeart's app, I maybe should just led with the iHeart app. But the point is, you can get it everywhere. But iHeart, helped produce it, so we're particularly thankful to them. But just go online, any search engine, DuckDuckGo, Mozilla Firefox, and put in Not Lost Travel Podcast.
Well, I am going to make this into my podcast because I have my own little interview podcast called Bacon Bits.
Oh, clever.
Thank you. That's that Mensa coming through. And I will make sure to attach a link so that people can easily access it, because you are darling, charming, and wonderful. And like I said, you always have a place to stay up here.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. And I really have a fondness for Seattle. So I may end up there at some point.
Perfect. You just let me know.
Okay, Amanda. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. You have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye.